Very good. Yes, so this is section 1 of the 8 sections. This is working with life stories, which I call the mother of all stories, because for each one of us, our life story shapes our perception of the world. You know, we always say we write what we know. So I don't think I'll invite you to go into breakout rooms tonight, but I will invite you to write, starting in a few moments, and you can continue writing throughout the whole hour if you like, but there'll be especially some things to write about. So does everyone have a pen and paper, or if you like, you can type into your computer. Your life story. And so what I'm getting at here is that one major way to make up stories is to fictionalize your own experience. But the first step is taking stock of your experience. So think about your life for a few moments. Think about your life story, and just take a few minutes to jot down some essential aspects of your life story. You know, of course, it begins with I was born in such a place in such a year, and it ends with, and here I am today. But in the middle there, of course, people write whole books of autobiographies. But I'm asking you tonight to only begin that autobiography and try to get in touch with some basic essential aspects of what are some of your unique interests, skills, and abilities. What have you really been interested in your life so far? And what you're interested in, generally, we get good at the things that we're interested in. We learn about those things, and eventually we maybe do that professionally. So what are your unique interests and skills? You can write as I'm talking. What are your unique interests and skills? What has been happening throughout your life? Or what has happened again and again? And here we're getting into the personal side. And you know, you're not sharing this with me or anybody else at the moment, so please be frank. What situation were you born into? You know, what family, what society, what culture, what community? So that's a very big question. How did your life story begin? How is it developed? And of course, our hopes for the future are part of our life story, but the future is not part of our life story. Our hopes for the future is part of our life story. So yeah, what has been your life? For me, I was born into an artistic, journalistic, educational family. Both my parents were creative artists and journalists about the arts. And my mother became an educator about dance. My father was a playwright and reviewed plays and movies for a magazine. So I had not a fairy tale upbringing, but a glorious upbringing in New York City in the 1960s and 70s, and I was fascinated by theater, experimental theater, and storytelling really was a part of that scene. Storytelling, the revival of storytelling was a part, really, in my perception, of the experimental theater scene. So in my life story, I began as a playwright, and then I discovered storytelling, which is a form of theater. But my essential is that I shifted to India. I went to the other side of the world. And in my fantasy world, you see, in the early 70s, feminism was just blooming. And there was one book in particular, When God Was a Woman, about theoretically, about the way patriarchy suppressed matriarchy on the social and mythic level. When God Was a Woman by Merlin Stone, who is, I'm not sure if she's still with us, but she was an art historian, an archaeologist. And she looked at the sculptures that people had in prehistoric times. And she gave voice to the narrative that all over the world, the patriarchal religions took over, suppressed, and many leaders of the storytelling revival were women who researched and then recreated stories of ancient goddesses, including my teacher, Laura Sims. She especially has worked with the story of Demeter and Persephone. So I thought goddess culture was very interesting, and of course I was very upset with the patriarchy. I'm a liberal. I'm a progressive. What can I say? I'm a flower child, even though I'm a little. I kind of missed it, but I'm a admirer of flower children. So part of my coming to India. I want to team up with goddess culture and humanize patriarchy. People laugh at me. My wife, an Indian woman, laughs at me. But that's the story of my life, in my perception. God bless me. So you look at your life. What what ideologies have you followed? Do you follow? What social movements have influenced you? Where do you situate yourself in society? What groups are you a member of, aside from male or female or other, or Indian or other? What groups? We develop an identity largely based on what groups we choose. 100 years ago, we all would have lived where our parents lived and done what our parents did. But now we can move. So communities of choice, which is a term in sociology, is the fact of the day. We choose what communities we're going to live in, especially online. So what groups, what communities are you in? What ideologies do you love and embrace and follow? What are you good at? What do you love to do? One of our great stand-up comedians, now passed away, Rodney Dangerfield, he summed up his life story in every single performance he gave. He used to say, his tagline was, "I don't get no respect." You notice the bad grammar. I don't get no respect. And then he'd tell a story to illustrate how his dog peed on his leg and how his wife did this to him and how his child did this to him. I don't get no respect. And he'd give examples again and again. I'm telling you, this man's entire career, a very successful career, was based on this line, I don't get no respect. So what is your line? My line is, I want to team up with goddess culture. Don't laugh at me. Yeah, so I'll stop talking for a couple of minutes. Yeah, just to think about this. What do you love to do? What are your special interests and skills? What is your vision of your mission in life? And bring in your personal life as much as you see fit. What did your father, what did your mother, what did the other seniors in your family, how did they influence you? Are you following the footsteps of anyone in your family in any particular way? Are you rebelling from people in your family in any particular way? Okay, I'm going to stop talking for a minute. Okay, I'm going to start talking again. If you want, you can turn off the volume on your computer. Or just keep writing.
That's not why we are attending the workshop, Eric. Just turn off the
Well,
volume.
it's all good. Me and my ilk, progressive liberal people, we are really heartbroken that the world has come to what it has. That what's going on with in the Middle East, as we call it in the USA. In India, it's called West Asia, right? But in the USA, it's called the Middle East. What's going on there with so much destruction on both sides, from both sides, to both sides. It's just a nightmare that they can't seem to break out of. Then Russia invading Ukraine. The very prominent possibility of nuclear bombs being used on the battlefield strategically. Global warming. It's no shock that young people today have an incredible high rate of depression and anxiety. Most young people are sure they'll never be as well off as their parents, because with inflation and with the reduction of the middle class in many countries, in the USA, the almost disappearance of the union movement, there is more income inequality, at least in the USA, than there's ever been. In 1970, the leader of a company might make 20 times as much as the average employee. Now the leader of the company makes thousands more than the average employee. So this is part of the background as I see it. In the 60s, okay, there were assassinations, and of course there was that horrible Vietnam War. But there was also hope and joy and beauty and discovery and excitement. One song sticks in my mind. It was sung by Petula Clark. It's a sign of the times. And it's about how her boyfriend is apologizing that he was mean to her and he wants to come back to her. It's a sign of the times. And so it was a sign of the times that a man was apologizing and respecting a woman, and that things were getting better. It's a sign of the times. Da 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 da. Look it up on YouTube. It's a lovely song. There's a nice recording of it. But what's the sign of the times today? Yikes! That sense of joy and optimism is nowhere as far as I can see. You may see things differently, but when it comes to making up stories, you have to speak from and to your own day and age. You know, we've already discussed in the last few hours, no matter what, we're making beautiful culture and we're sharing it with each other. And we're maturing, we're growing, we're developing our community, we're taking care of what we need to take care of, no matter what. Nothing's going to stop us unless the internet is shut down. But even then, you have your local community. But aside from that, democracy seems to be dwindling. All sorts of terrible things seem to be happening around the world. And I would think that this is part of the stories that one might make up. Now I'm not talking about stories that you tell to children necessarily. I'm talking about stories for movies, for teleserials, for novels, for poetry. Does anyone have any commentary on the sign of the times that I'm mentioning about today? Does anyone see anything more optimistic, more joyful about today's day and age? Shraddha.
Our communication and connections have increased logarithmically
Yes.
in today's day and age. I find that very hopeful, very positive. The very fact of the people that I see here and the names that I see on the screen, I know where they're from. That itself to me is an amazing sign of the times, a
Wonderful.
positive sign.
True. There was a man named Teilhard de Chardin. I believe he was a Catholic priest, but maybe he was kicked out after a while. But he wrote about what he called the noosphere, Noosphere. This is in the 50s and 60s, where he was imagining, he was dreaming of a global network of communication, such as the internet has become. And he related it to the divine. But absolutely, that is a great joy and a great wonderful development that we're having today, which couldn't have been dreamed of only a short time ago. You know, when I was a boy, there were 3 television networks, and that was it. That was in the USA. I think India was the same. So now there's just a plethora of ways to communicate with each other around the world. Tanya.
Hi, I think it's a very interesting discussion, Eric. I was thinking that, medicine too has, we've made a lot of progress in figuring out various kinds of diseases which used to be very elusive earlier. But now the lifespan has increased, life expectancy has increased. So things are looking up. In fact, even when you were mentioning wars, while of course, whatever's happening, it's gory, it's gut-wrenching, but I still believe that the world largely is moving forward, has become more peaceful than it was centuries ago. There's data and statistics to prove that less people die of war and atrocities as they used to earlier. Travel has become safer. Airplane crashes used to be far more frequent than they are now. I think there's much to be hopeful about as well.
Okay. Okay. Nina?
Yeah, good evening and good afternoon, good morning to all. So for me, like stories have been inspiring, not because from the lessons that we have learned. And I see a lot of familiar faces here. And we have been there sharing and learning a lot from each other, irrespective of where we belong to or what we are doing. And I think the new hope, a new beginning, and the unique thing to accept the accept the unique and to come together for a cause to spread positive side vibes towards as long as we can. So the coming togetherness, learning from our mistakes, and moving ahead without any selfishness. That is what I think is what I feel is coming up in today's generation.
Great. Okay, so I'm sort of jumping ahead to tomorrow's session, but what I want to say is if you want to relate what we've been talking about to a story or as a story, what you probably are going to do is create characters, imaginary characters, maybe based on yourself or people you know, who are in situations that are related to what we've been talking about, both good things and bad things, and create and have your audience members follow the adventures. Story is adventure. The very concept of story, the feeling of a story means it's an adventure. And adventures are dangerous. Something could happen. You survive an adventure by the skin of your teeth. That's an expression. That means you just barely survive to tell the tale. That's what a story is. There's drama in a story because maybe it didn't work out. For some people, it's not going to work out. But for the character that you're talking about, telling about, whether it's yourself or an imaginary character, hopefully things do work out. So look at all these social conditions as well as your personal circumstances, and see if a character appears who is in the midst of it and who's dealing with it. Sri Devi?
Hi, Eric, and hi, everyone. Yeah, I feel so positive about the generation next that is coming up, as we see the problems that we face are not anymore an individual's problem or a country's problem. It becomes the entire world's problem that we are facing. And definitely this needs a lot of collaboration and communication with one another. And the COVID has taught us a wonderful lesson that we need to think of the problems as a bigger one, and also to find solutions that fits to each and every country. So this is definitely going to be a very good, lesson that can be taken by the next generation. And the children who are in the next generation are also solving the problem in a better way with the use of technology, leveraging technology, as well as family. So that's really wonderful, something positive that is happening. I'm very hopeful about the next generation coming up.
Okay, so express that hope in a story. Create a character who navigates through all the challenges and comes out well. So what I'm suggesting is, both with yourself and your characters in stories, look at them as individuals and their family history, but also look at them as actors in the social scene, in the social historical moment. And I think a magical aspect, both of our own lives and of the lives of characters in stories, is the way these two things intersect. The way they overlap. Stories can begin where the characters are just living their own lives, and it seems like it's an individual story, but then things can develop, and it turns out they're in the middle of they save the world. They're in the middle of a social movement, or something happens where they get on a global stage, or in some way they transcend their own individual situation. I love stories like that. We'll be looking at 3 stories over these 8 sessions. Silappathikaram, the Epic of the Ankle Bracelet, which is a leading story here in Tamil Nadu. And in that story, a woman, most of the story is just a personal drama between her and her husband and another woman. But then as things develop, I don't want to go into the story right now, but she eventually requests the god of fire to burn a city where she feels she was abused, because her husband was killed there. She feels her family was abused. Her husband was killed unjustly, and people had not supported her. So she requests the god of fire to cleanse the city by burning it, and the god of fire does it. She didn't do it. The god of fire did it. And then she continues on to the western mountains and begins a new tribe. So in that story, her own personal human drama turns into a big social drama for the city that got burned, certainly. Then we'll also be looking at a play by William Shakespeare, my favorite play of his, The Tempest, which is about a man who is his kingdom is taken away from him, and he's put in a little boat with his baby daughter that they hope he'll die, but they don't quite have the nerve to kill him. But his boat drifts to an island in the middle of the ocean, and years later he studies magic. He has his magic books. In addition to him being the ruler of that kingdom, he was a ruler of a kingdom in Italy. So it's not clear where the island is, whether it's in the Mediterranean or whether it's in someplace else. But through his magic work, he causes a tempest, a storm, which eventually shipwrecks his enemies on his island. His enemies were going to a marriage someplace by ship. But the lead character in the story in league with nature. His fury, his frustration, he's able to extend it into nature to cause a storm, which shipwrecks his enemies on his island, and he gets justice with them. And then the third story is a story that I've created for a movie that I'm trying to get produced, about a group of teenagers from New York City who come on an educational visit to South India. They visit with tribal people, and they learn about a particular flower that has a very strong medicine. And they share the knowledge about that flower with many people. But along the way, there's singing and dancing, and all of the young people, including tribal people, the teenagers, they're having their identity crises. So all three of these stories involve characters who either extend into nature or extend into social happenings. So I recommend that kind of story, and I'm always on the lookout for it. Okay, so I wanted to say part of the reason my generation, the flower child generation, which I aspire to be a member of, we're so disgusted is that we fought so hard to get the USA out of Vietnam. And then before you know it, the USA is going into Iraq and Afghanistan, same trip. And it dawned on us that the point is not to win any of these wars, it's just to spend a lot of money and redistribute wealth to the military-industrial complex. So we feel so powerless. And so, all the cultural work, we thought we were changing the world, but it turns out we're as powerless as ever. Okay, so to review, your life story. Your mother, your father, the other adults, how have they influenced you? What traits have you picked up from them? What communities did you grow up in? What geographical climate did you grow up in? And then what do you love to do? What is your mission? What is your communities of choice? Look at all the social conditions. And if you want to say anything, or if you want to point out anything, you might want to create a fictional character who is experiencing some of these things and follow the adventures of that fictional character. Anyone want to share any thoughts, any details about your life, or just any thoughts about anything now? My style as a teacher or trainer is to talk for a few minutes and then stop and, insist that somebody else say something. Veena.
Well, both of us are teachers. We are both sharing, and there's a big audience here. I've already thought of my tagline is learn as you age. Both of us have nice silver hair. To accept that silver hair is quite a problem. I have been trying since the past 4 years, but well, things do happen.
I think we should keep the silver hair. I can't face dyeing my hair and then people will see the silver, there, and they'll say, oh, he's dyeing his hair. No, we just have to accept it.
We have
at least
to
I have hair. I have hair. I'm thrilled with that.
And then along with the silver hair comes the change in your outlook, in your health, so it's a change. Change is the only constant, I think. So my tagline would tentatively be learn as you age.
Mm-hmm. What would your tagline have been 20, 30 years ago?
Explore. I have been traveling a lot. Since the past 20 years, 30 years. And even in childhood, I think my father used to take us on holidays. So he was always introducing us to different places, different climates. I still remember childhood train journey from Mumbai to Delhi, and then a night stop there, and we stayed at some Sardarji's house. We don't even know who he was. And then we continued to Kathmandu because that was our destination. That was like going foreign, Nepal.
And do you feel relatively fulfilled?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Very, very fulfilled. I think the world has welcomed me. I welcome the world now. And learning has been great.
So you're, relatively speaking, you're living happily ever after.
Learning to, still learning to.
Yeah, well, you're on
I'm
track.
happy.
You're on track.
I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'm
no,
happy
that's-
this far. I've been very lucky, and I'm happy.
That's wonderful. So you might want to make a story with a character who makes similar wise decisions as a way of, many times people who are happy with their lives, they write an autobiography or they create stories to give guidance to young people to succeed like they've succeeded. That's a social service.
I think that happens when I go to the government schools and the NGOs, and they look upon me now, partly due to age again. But when you share stories like this, they're like, wow, wow, wow. And then you realize, what have I done? I don't think I've done much. But then when another person tells you that you've done this and done that, that's when you probably feel you've changed yourself and hope to give that motivation to the others.
And guidance. There's also an interesting term, life story repair. That means when one was all set to live a certain life, and then it didn't work out. Like one thinks one is going to be heterosexual and marry somebody of the opposite sex, and it turns out one discovers one is gay, or one discovers one is transsexual. It's not gonna end the way you thought it was gonna end, or people get divorced, which is a tremendous shock to the system, because many of us go into marriages thinking, until death do us part. And it's a major part of our identity and our family identity, and if it breaks up and there's a divorce, it shakes people to the core. Many people commit suicide over these things. If one is diagnosed with a terminal or even a chronic illness, that if one turns out one is schizophrenic, labeled as schizophrenic, and you're in a mental hospital, and you're told you're going to have to take antipsychotic medication for the rest of your life, that's a tremendous shock to the system. So there are many shocks to the system which either make you or break you. Some people remain depressed for the rest of their lives, or they end their lives. Other people shake it off and recalibrate, they chart a new course. Like you're a captain of a ship, you're blown off course by a storm, and then you have to rechart your course to get to where you want to go. But you might think about, how is your life not working out the way you thought it was going to, and how are you dealing with it? This is called resilience. People who have resilience are a lot better off than people who are rigid and stuck. A lot of people have their hands raised. Please, anyone jump in.
Yeah, may I, Eric?
Go
Since
ahead.
you have stopped at this point,
Go ahead.
I would like to say, okay, since you said about resilience and what we thought life would be and what life has thrown at us, I would like to share my personal experience. And first of all, I would like to begin with the tagline. My life tagline is enjoy the simple things in life, because I've had a wonderful childhood, and it was actually nothing extravagant, all small, simple things. My fondest memories are my childhood memories, where I used to go cycling with my best friend and have sugarcane juice or have a pani puri. And there are fun times where I used to just play in the mud and go cycling. But as the years passed by, yes, I got married, And when I got married to a different household with a totally different thought process, where they're all like, they plan for the big picture, but somewhere they miss out on the small joys. So you can't blame them for their thinking, right? And so it was a more traditional and orthodox household. But I have two daughters, and I have ensured that, they don't miss out on the simple joys. So I always ensure that, they have the same kind of things, at least if not fully, half of it, what I've experienced. And I've taken them to the park, I've made them play, I've taught them cycling, and I've taken them to the street eateries, because, it's fun eating there more than a big restaurant. Those sort of things. So my tagline is enjoy the simple things in life. And yes, you should respect others also. So that's why, I mean, you need not rebel, but you can always carry on with what you believe side by side. That's there. So, and you have to maintain the peace. So you cannot rebel for everything at home. So at the same time, you can also ensure that your kids are having fun and enjoying the simple things in life. So that's what I would like to share. Thank you.
Sarah?
Yes, thank you. I could really relate to what both of you just said. I certainly relate to learning as we age too, and enjoying the simple things in life. But I have actually already created a fictional character. Eric, her name is Anne Brown, and so I'm using her to tell untold stories from American history about African Americans, Native Americans, women, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? LGBTQ. I haven't gotten to that yet, but I'm germinating that. And when I saw the theme of this conference, and I saw the challenge to create a story, which would be really hard for me to do right now because I'm trying to memorize one for next week. Then I'm going to, but part of me wants to create yet another story for this. I'm thinking that my own personal story is really related to this fictional character, Anne Brown, because I'm transitioning from trying to organize advocacy efforts, like immigration and anti-racism and stuff. At my age, at 68, like I'm like done with organizing. I want to be a cheerleader for others, But what I really want to do is storytelling, but I need the skills. So that's why I'm here, actually. I need to work on the skills so I can incorporate it in living history. I can go to a women's group and use this. And I'm thinking that my tagline should maybe be, I need to learn the art of storytelling so that I can tell those untold stories better.
Great. Of course, there's two parts to storytelling. One is story, thinking about stories, finding stories, creating stories, which is what we're doing in this workshop. And the other is what we're not doing in this workshop, which is developing the craft of storytelling performance. So, many times people use storytelling to refer to all communication of stories. They'll say a novelist is a great storyteller, a cinema director is a great storyteller. But those of us who have been in the live, performance storytelling world, we resent that. We think storytelling really should be reserved for people telling in a social gathering, and I would include video conferencing, a social gathering in which people can give feedback to each other instantaneously. That's the real hallmark of storytelling. But this workshop is dedicated to story, not storytelling. Well, great. So you have a mission with developing and sharing stories. Wonderful. Udaya.
Hi, my name is Udaya. I am an actor based out of North Carolina. So I feel really thankful to be here. I am a storyteller, but I always end up telling stories of others. And it's good to be here working with you, Eric, on story composition. So my tagline would be, I am enough and I belong here. I think I am enough and I belong here. That's the tagline for my story, because I I work here with a lot of, not, what do I say? Like with other people that are not Indians and not maybe many person of color. So every time I walk into a space, I always feel, do I belong here? And I end up shrinking myself, not opening up and telling what I feel or what my perspective is. Oftentimes women in general don't feel that they are enough, and they don't speak up, and they don't feel belonged in a space. So yeah, that's my tagline.
Very good. Now, of course, as you've pretty much said, that tagline implies its opposite. To say I am enough, and what was it? I
belong here.
I belong here, and I'm enough.
Yeah.
That's a response to a voice that says you are not enough and you don't belong here.
Mhm.
I mean, one of the ideas of deconstructionism is that every statement is a reaction to and implies its opposite. And this is very much the case here. So you are interested in how and why people might not feel they belong and how they can get over it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Very good. Anita.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, all. My tagline would be flow and grow by staying curious and adapting new perspectives. I've always been a curious person, curious child. I've enjoyed a relatively easy and comfortable childhood. And I've been always curious to the utter dismay and discomfort of my parents. I used to ask uncomfortable questions. With time, I learned to curb my voice. And for a long part of my life, my tagline was stay afloat and survive. And recently it changed, and I learned to regain my voice, learn to speak out what I like to say. And so now my perspective is, now my tagline is flow and grow by staying curious and changing perspectives, adapting new perspectives.
Very good. So again, you might create a character who goes on a related journey to what you've gone through.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Does someone else? Nina.
Yeah, good evening, good afternoon to all. I'm Neena Girish. I'm from India, now in Kerala. So my tagline is about my own personal experience while in job. So it's about toxic relations that should we continue with? Is it necessary to continue with toxic relations, or just move ahead and follow your passion? Because age is, after all, just the increasing in number, and there is no end to move forward and follow your passion. So basically, it's about an experience that any person goes through while you are in a profession where you always have lots of dramas going around your profession. When it hurts you a lot, and then you think that, and you get enough time to prove, you are staying there for a long time and thinking that, okay, this will pass on, this will pass on. But when that doesn't happen, and then you think that one fine day you have done a lot, and you are appreciated for that, and everybody is accepting what you have done, but still in somewhere the inner consciousness tells you that now it's more than enough, it's better move away and follow your passion. So it's all about whether we should, because people have different opinion that ignore and move, but how long will you ignore all these toxic things? So that is what my tagline is, and I have developed a character. I'd be using the character to narrate the story of what I've experienced.
Good, good. When you say toxic relationships, I'm thinking you mean that you feel you've been abused, emotionally abused by these people.
Yeah, mental and emotional harassment.
So there are different ways to approach that. One is, why does the patriarchy produce so much bad behavior in men? Why are women sometimes very mean to women?
Yeah.
So those on the social level, and then of course on the psychological, psychoanalytic level, it's what patterns from my childhood am I repeating? If I had a parent who was emotionally abusive, sometimes we will repeat that relationship. But and then the dream of therapy is that by understanding what happened, we can diffuse it. We can free ourselves from the pattern if we really work through it and become aware of it. My wife is a psychodrama director, and she helps people act out. She's doing a workshop Sunday evening about this time, a little earlier, which I highly recommend. Psychodrama, which is basically role playing, is a wonderful therapeutic tool to help people not only become aware of their inner motivations and feelings, but by acting it out, you can begin to get over it. But now that relationships have come up, take a moment and write about a relationship in your life that has been especially important, that you've put a lot of thought into. Professional writers often have relationships that they are specialists in. Mother-daughter, brother-sister, husband-wife. And they develop that specialty because they've experienced it in a very intense way. So off the top of your head, what relationship is especially on your mind in your life, present or past, that took up a lot of your bandwidth, a lot of your energy, a lot of your thought? Maybe there were challenging aspects of it, maybe there were only blissful aspects of it, but what kind of relationship do you feel you're very knowledgeable about because you've experienced it and you've thought a lot about it? And if you've thought a lot about it, you've also researched about it. So just give that a thought for a minute. What relationship with a parent, a child, a sibling, somebody else has been especially important in your life?
For me, actually, if I say, as a child, I had all the freedom, being from an army background. So that was all there. And even after marriage, I should thank my husband for being very supportive. Yeah, the relation that I have with my, back in my school with my kids and my students and other teachers are well. Only one person who created all the drama is all about that couldn't go well with most of us. And I particularly had to take a final call to quit and be part of some of, like I'm part of autism spectrum autism. So I'm happy helping them out and with a lot of other stories and spreading awareness. So
good. I don't know if any of you know the name Gabor Mate. He's a doctor, actually, a general practitioner who is very interested in psychology and has written books about psychology, even though he's not trained as a psychologist. And his approach is he will ask people, what has irritated you in the last few days? And they'll give an answer, and then he'll say, has that happened before? And the person will say yes. And within 5 minutes, Gabor Mate helps the person realize that it goes back to traumas in their childhood. So, we all have things that we get irritated about. And if you ever want to do this kind of introspective work, follow the irritation. Let's see. So, I want to say about skill gathering and life repair. Many times we hit dead ends in life. We thought something was going to be the greatest, a relationship or a profession or a particular job. We thought, this is it. I've found it. But then it doesn't. 6 months later or a year later, one has to move on, and that can be very disturbing to us if we built our identity around that activity, that profession, that person, and so later in life, when you get to our age, those of you who also have silver hair, if you've had some success in your life, you realize that all the steps along the way, you learned a lot from. And you were not meant to stay at those stages, but you were going through skill gathering and knowledge gathering experiences. And what you had to do was learn a lot from a lot of different places and then put it all together. But the thing is that in retrospect, it all makes sense. But as one is living it and things are not working out that one thought was going to work out, it's a nightmare. People kill themselves. So people have to, keep patience and keep a larger view and realize that they are gathering skills, gathering knowledge, and it's all going to fit together someday.
Yes.
Why are you laughing? It's true? You've experienced something like that.
Yep. Many times, isn't it? We think, yes, we are in it. We are in that hot boiling cauldron of experiences of water, hot water. And then time changes, time moves on, and we realize it's all over. And we've learned something out of it. So use it when you require it again.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we've talked about a lot of things in this last 55 minutes, centering around one's experience, one's life experience, one's social experience, one's intellectual experience. What I am saying is that this is a great source for story material. You will be able to create fictional stories relating to all this because you know all this. You have intimate knowledge of these things, and you'll be able to create realistic and emotionally gripping characters going through the kind of experiences that we've been talking about. Okay, so this was session 1, looking at life stories and the context of one's life, the social context, as a source for story. Tomorrow, it's where do stories come from on additional levels. Your dreams, including what you dream when you're asleep and what you're hoping for. We'll talk about metaphors in general, creating metaphors for experience. What is the central interest of a story? Sometimes people begin story composition with an idea, that they have an idea or a point that they want to make. And then they create a story to express that or to manifest that. So, and we'll do some imagination exercises tomorrow, accessing your unconscious. We'll do some of that. I have put in the chat room the web page of the summary of the movie that I want to make. If you want, you can contribute a little bit of money to me for these workshops, but that's not really what I want. I want you to put me in touch with an agent who will sell my script to Apple Studios in Northern California. Okay? Yes, please try. You might know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who can sell my script to Apple Studios. Because because in the movie, there's an important character in the movie is a tablet computer, which helps the young people and the tribal people communicate to the outside world about this flower medicine. So I think it's natural that either Apple or Samsung or somebody who makes tablet computers should help produce this movie, and they'll get free advertising in the movie. But anyway, if you want to pay me back for tonight's session and future sessions, just read the summary. Let's get it going. And then I believe, to be honest, my work in these last 9 months setting up this festival, my motivation dream has been Mani Ratnam's grandchild, and I don't even know if Mani Ratnam has a grandchild. Mani Ratnam's grandchild will attend one of these sessions and say, oh, yeah, I think my grandfather might want to make this movie. Isn't that a terrible reason to produce a storytelling festival? I feel bad about that, but there it is. So the web page is in the and it's copyrighted. The story is copyrighted. I've written the screenplay. The screenplay is not on the website, of course, just a summary. But if you would read the summary and you know, be ready to talk about it. It's one of the stories, along with Shakespeare's The Tempest and the Epic of the Ankle Bracelet. Those three stories we'll be looking at over these 8 sessions in terms of all the we're going to get to the 3-act structure, the famous 3-act structure. We're going to get to the concept of the well-made play or the well-written novel. These are all formulas that are not so important. They're after the fact. Creative people create. They don't follow formulas. But after creative people create, scholars come along and analyze and say, this follows the three-part structure or some other structure. So it's interesting to learn about these structures, but it's more important to access the materials from your unconscious and from your life experience and let it take its own form. If anyone attends all 8 sessions and wants a certificate, I'll give you a certificate. You really should send me a few rupees by PayPal if you do that, or PayPal or GPay. But again, what I'm really after is the agent and Apple Studios. So please think about your long lost uncle who is in the movie business or something, and help me out. Okay, shall we say good night? We'll hopefully tomorrow we'll begin at 9 o'clock instead of 9:30. Okay, good evening, everybody, or good morning. Deepa, again, you did a beautiful job storytelling today. I was a little upset that it was going overtime before you came on, but once you came on, you cured me. I stopped worrying about it because you did such a beautiful job.
Thank you.
Sure.
I felt so embarrassed because this was not one of my best performances, and I expected much better from myself. But thank you, and I'm happy that it was the first time for me.
Well, you're a teacher, right?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're a teacher, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you know your way around a stage. Being a teacher is being on stage. So you may not feel you're experienced as a storyteller, but you're an experienced public speaker, which is what a teacher is. So you did an excellent job. Okay, good night and good morning.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Eric. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So,